Hello everybody, my name is Jason Al-Agha and this is my capstone presentation on life after basketball, the relationship between athlete support services and career development. So I'm going to start with the purpose statement for this study to lead us. The purpose of this study was to investigate the relationship between academic and career development services for junior college basketball players. So where the study again is focused on is on junior college basketball players only. This specific population is or has been, at least according to the literature and this study, they're underinformed about career development. They have very vague career objectives, meaning they don't have anything that they plan to do outside of basketball for their career, which is a major problem. HPAs or high performance athletes, they benefit from having a dual career strategy. A dual career strategy is basically to have their sport that they're pursuing and they have a different career that they're pursuing concurrently. That's important for them so that they can pursue competitive sports in case that they could go professional, as well as have a backup plan, a backup career. The research questions that this study used was, number one, how do student athletes learn about the support services available to them at their institution? Research question number two, how do student athletes perceive academic support services in preparing them for a career transition? And the last research question is, how do student athletes perceive academic support services in preparing them for academic success? And we will see why those three research questions are really important. So first, let's talk about the literature. So HPAs, as we mentioned before, are high performance athletes. So this study was a landmark study because it basically defined what a high performance athlete was, um, how much they valued education, and it looked specifically at the challenges that a student athlete faces, having to be at practice, games, travel, all of that, as well as having to be a student, taking tests, writing papers, turning in assignments. So essentially what was found in this study was that our behavior is affected by 5 different spheres of influence. Those spheres of influence are the individual, the interpersonal, the institutional, which is basically the college, the community around them, and the social structure. So this is important so we can see the negative reinforcements that cause the disconnect in the decision making for careers for these junior college basketball players or any college athlete for that matter. The next study that we're going to talk about focusing on graduation rates. And it focuses specifically on the graduation rates of NCAA athletes, but it goes even further to be specific about African American male college athletes. It looked at why were their graduation rates specifically lower than all other NCAA athletes. Why is it just that population of African American male college athletes? Why do they suffer the most? And what was found mainly was that there are pre-college factors that influence, how they do academically, and these factors were self-efficacy, a lack of role models, their environment, and just a simple lack of preparedness for college and the rigorous coursework that they're going to have to deal with. This is important because it explains why these low graduation rates continuously happen with this population, and it also provides ways to kind of reverse that trend because it really shouldn't be that way. It's inequitable, and there should be a way to reverse the low graduation rates of that population. Moving on to the third landmark study, this one specifically focuses on the community college system, which is important to this study, obviously, because we're going to be focusing on junior college basketball players. So the purpose of this study was to understand the issues or the challenges that junior college athletes face, as well as to provide more of an assistance for the administrators at the junior college level so that they could provide a better support program for their student athletes. And what was mainly found was nothing that was really surprising, but there was evidence that junior colleges or junior college athletes um, need more support because of the reasons why they're at junior college in the first place. A lot of it is financial, academic, social. All those reasons are why they're at the community college level and not at four-year college level. It is not because of their talent. It's because of those factors that aren't necessarily visible to everybody. The other thing that this study reinforced was that community colleges simply just have a lack of resources when compared to four-year colleges. And that's another challenge that the athletes at the community colleges face as well. All right, so now we're going to talk about the present study. The present study um, was conducted through a survey. The name of the survey was named by myself. Um, it's called the Academic Career Support Services Perception Survey. Sorry about that. So ACSSP. This survey had 19 questions and three different sections. So those three different sections were organized based off the research questions. The first section was the dissemination of support services. So basically, how are support services at the school? How are those being marketed or explained to the students and the student athletes? The second section was career transition perceptions. So this looked at how the athletes or the participants of the study, how do they view career transition within themselves and in general? How do they perceive it? Do they know anything about it? And lastly, academic success perceptions. This essentially tried to answer, is succeeding academically important for them? Um, do they care to earn a degree? How do they choose their major? Basically anything having to do with academics and how they see it, how the participants see it. Those were the focus of that section. The survey in general had Likert scale questions for the most part, had a few yes or no questions, and had 3 written response questions. So we had both quantitative and qualitative feedback, hence the convergent mixed method design of the study. The participants of the study, um, like we said, all junior college basketball players. They're all male, ages 18 to 25. Obviously, they were all full-time students because they were eligible players of the basketball team. And the study was conducted after one of their practices. It was organized that way. Um, all participants used a pen and paper to take the survey, and they had about 20 minutes. Some used the whole time, some took a little bit less. All right, so now on to the results. The results of the study. So we have quantitative findings and we also have qualitative findings. The qualitative findings provided us with some themes to work off of. All right, so what I have listed here, these are not all of the results of this study, but I put the most important ones relevant to uncovering kind of some truths about the topic. So the first one, we found that 42% of the participants had not spoke with anyone at their school about a career transition. So that's extremely important because almost half of the team had not spoke with an administrator or coach or anybody of that sort about transitioning from basketball to another, or at least having a plan for it. The next one, which is the largest, said 92% had no knowledge of any type of career development support at their institution. So almost all of the players, to be exact, it was all but one player on the team, said that they had no knowledge of any kind of support for career development, which is a huge finding. The next one, 50%, so half of them had no knowledge of any type of academic support at their school. So half the team did not know that they had academic support. So it's obvious that half of them knew that they had academic support service at their school. So that's obvious that the school offers it, but half the team didn't know about it. Um, Another important one was 42% had undeclared majors. So all these students are trying to transfer from the community college level to the four-year college level, yet they don't have any majors that are chosen. So that kind of tells us that they don't really have any career plans outside of basketball. They're just kind of taking classes just because they have to. Lastly, this is not the biggest finding, but I think it is kind of important. 25% had undecided career goals. So that's working off the last one. So a quarter of the team uh, didn't have any career goals. Wasn't basketball related or anything. They didn't know what they wanted to do in life. So I think that that's really important as well. All right, so moving away from the quantitative findings, we're going to move over to the qualitative findings. So we found three themes throughout the study using the written responses on the survey. The first one, support availability. So what a lot of the participants noted was they didn't really have a lot of diverse available support services for them. It's one program. A lot of them listed. The name of the program was the LA Champs program. That Champs program basically gives them an opportunity to come in, work on their homework. It's kind of like a study hall. They have tutors in the study hall as well. Outside of that, there isn't really anything. So a lot of them voiced their displeasure with the diversity of the support availability. The next one, which we touched upon a little bit, is the support publicity. So when we talked about half of the participants of the study didn't know about any type of academic support services at their school, that shows that the support services aren't really being publicized to the students. They're not really marketed or promoted enough, at least. Half of the team knew about it, half the team didn't. It honestly should be the whole team. So I think that that's really an important theme. And lastly, course accessibility. That was the third theme. So the course accessibility essentially had some students say that they don't have the available classes that they need when they need to register. The other thing is, what that was mentioned was not enough online classes are available. And we'll see why that's important, or we'll talk about why that's important in the next coming slides. So for the discussion section, the study by St. Cyrin, that was the community college article. As we said before, it reinforced that community colleges lack support services or resources for their students. That study actually found that not enough emphasis is being put on academic support. The current study that we have here actually did not show that. It showed the opposite. It showed that the school or the participants were were competing at actually put a good deal of emphasis on academic support through their Champs program. On the other hand, there was another study, Lawley and Kerr, in 2015. Essentially, their study explained that it was an issue for older adolescents. So when getting closer to college years, career development was a challenge for them. On the flip side, this present study showed that the institution doesn't really provide any dual career advice for their players. So it goes hand in hand. These adolescents have a challenge or have trouble with developing their careers, and the school where they go to study and where they play, they don't really provide them with that dual career strategy, that dual career advice that they really need. Being aspiring professional basketball players, they need that backup plan, so their school isn't really providing them with that. All right, so moving on to the recommendations and implications of this. The development of the academic and career resources at community colleges, that's crucial. They're just not developed enough. They don't have enough resources for students. So it just shows that there's a lack of development um, with the community college system. Another thing is that we've touched on briefly is that junior college athletes, they're at a disadvantage when compared to four-year athletes, and they're at a disadvantage because of the lack of resources at their school. And when they enter into college, they're already at a disadvantage because they're there for a reason. If they were good students, if they had stable homes, if they had their financial situation at home was solid, they would probably be at a four-year college. But unfortunately, they end up at a community college because they don't have as affluent parents or families, so they're unable to pay for those four-year colleges. They have instability at home where they can't go away to college, they have to stay at home. And all of these types of factors, they play a role into it, which puts those junior college athletes at a disadvantage compared to four-year athletes. So they need all the support that they could get, and they're just not getting enough of it. Um, a recommendation, um, we're going to start with the athletes themselves. They need to be a little bit more proactive themselves. Instead of just letting everything pass them by, they need to develop a dual career strategy themselves. And sometimes it's going to take for them to do their own research, to ask their own questions. They're not going to be um, fed this information. They got to go find it themselves sometimes. So that's important. Obviously, they need somebody to tell them that, but it starts with the athletes themselves. Um, the other thing is we're going to move in progression. So we started with the athletes. Now we're going to move to the coach, since he's or coaches. Coaches are in the closest proximity to the players. Um, the coaches, I feel like, have a responsibility to devote a little bit of time to talk individually with every player about their career, whether it's basketball related or whether it's dual career related, where they talk about basketball, the likelihood of them going pro, and coming up with strengths or potential interests of the player to things that they can pursue outside of basketball or outside of their respective sport. So coaches are really important in that. Um, Counselors and administrators are just as important. Um, like we talked about earlier, um, academic success is pushed at this particular institution in this study. So the counselors or the administrators should start placing more equitable emphasis on the career development of athletes and not just their academic success. And lastly, it's really important, at least from the qualitative findings that we have in this study, that the schools or administration, they need to start accommodating the athlete lifestyle a little bit more. So that means more online classes so that they can be athletes and students without having to struggle going from class to practice to school and all of that. They can do things at their own pace and get things done. And also offering more classes. Again, they have a lack of resources at the community college level, but that shouldn't affect the ability of a student to get the classes that they need and their ability to graduate and earn a degree. So community college needs to start offering a little bit more classes for their students. The recommendation for future studies is to incorporate a larger population in future studies. This current study only took 12 student athletes from one team, one school. So maybe incorporating another team from another school, getting a larger population, getting a more diverse sample set would be really important to gaining more information about this topic. I've attached the references I used for my study in the end of this presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed my study, and I hope you guys are able to learn from it. Thank you.